Hi guys, in this video we're going to talk about conduction and induction, and I've got a piece of Cornell paper that I've filled out a tiny bit already, and we're going to talk about conduction and induction. Over here goes your name, class period. Our essential question is, and there's really only one so we don't have to do that, what are the different methods of charging an object? Now on this paper I'm only going to write a little bit and then I'm going to show you some demos because it's fun. Okay, so there are three that we're going to talk about. One of them is called friction. You've already done this one. In fact, this was the very first thing that you did in class. Charging by friction is when you rub two objects together and electrons are transferred. Okay, when you rubbed the balloon on your head, you transferred electrons from your head to the balloon, or maybe it was the balloon to your head, I'm not sure. But then they were both charged, your hair and the balloon, and you were able to do some fun stuff with the balloon. The second way, which you've also already done, is charging by conduction. And conduction is when you touch a charged object to an uncharged object and you transfer electrons. The key here is touching. Now the third kind that you haven't done yet but you'll be doing soon, or maybe you have done this one. This one's kind of interesting. Induction. And induction is actually kind of a longer process. So this is when a charged object is brought near. It's not touching, it's near an uncharged object, resulting in the movement of electrons. So those electrons are still moving. It's always the electrons, movement of electrons. It's always the electrons that are moving. It just depends on what's causing them to move and how it's going. So here I have an uncharged rod. So my negatives are these little grains of rice, and my positives, well, they're attached to the material because you can't move them, okay? So I'm going to use my hand. Let's pretend my hand is something, and I'm going to rub a charge on here. Oh, look. Now it's positively charged because I removed some of those electrons. Can you see that okay? Yeah, it's kind of, there we go. Okay, so now I have a positively charged rod, okay? That was by friction, charging by friction. When I rub stuff, I charge by friction. Now I can also rub stuff in such a way, that I end up giving it more charges instead of less. So now this is a negatively charged rod. But to begin with, let's start with a positively charged rod. Okay, so here's my positively charged rod. Now, by conduction, here is my negatively charged, or this is my neutral rod, my uncharged and my charged. You see, I got more positive than negative, so this is a positively charged thing. And this is an even amount, so it's not charged. When I touch these, some of these negative charges say, hey, look, we can get away from those other guys, and they kind of spread out. Now, I did add some negative charges over here, but not enough to make it neutral. In fact, it should be even. These are both now positively charged. So that is conduction. Now, if I had a negatively charged object, let me move these guys back over here. Ooh, come back. All right, if I had a negatively charged object, I rub it with some friction and I end up with lots of extra electrons on here instead. Then when I bring this guy over, these electrons go the other way and they say, hey, look at that, plenty of room for us, let's go join that guy over there. And now this one is also negatively charged. Still both negative charged, okay, but the electrons are going the other way. So the difference between charging something negative and charging something positive is which way the electrons go. Okay, so let's get this one back to neutral here. Okay, so there's my uncharged rod again. So now let's think about how this is going to be if it is induction. Okay, so let's start with a positive rod. Okay, now this one's tricky. Are you ready? All right, so with induction, what happens is I bring it close but not touching. Now, these electrons really want to go over there, so they kind of move that way. Oh yeah, they really want to go to that other rod. Now, if I just move this away, those electrons will go back to normal, and this will continue to be an uncharged rod. But if I ground it, that is, I take something, this is my grounding method here, and I connect it to the ground, like Earth, literally the ground. The ground is an infinite source of electrons. So there's all these electrons over here that they say, hey, we like that negative thing over there, that positive thing over there too, so we'll just come join. And so now, when I move this away, this has extra electrons on it. So I've just charged this negatively. So I had a positive rod, and I charged this the opposite way because extra electrons were coming toward this positive thing. So if I go back to my neutral rod here, my neutral, no charge, okay, and instead of bringing a negative or a positive rod, let me charge by friction, rub, rub, rub. Oh, look, now it's negatively charged. If I bring my negatively charged rod over, what happens is kind of the opposite. These electrons say, oh, gee, I don't like those other electrons, so they run away. Now, if I bring in my grounding tool and I ground it, these electrons now say, whoo, thank goodness, we can leave. They're running away from the scene. They don't want to be around those extra electrons. And then when I move my negative charge away, these guys redistribute, but now I have a lot less negative charge. So this is now a positive charge. So the difference between conduction and induction that is pretty major is that when you charge by conduction, your object will get the same charge, and when you charge by induction, your object will get the opposite charge. So we might note that. So this results in same charge, and this results in opposite charge. Now the other thing about induction is if you want the charge to stick, you have to ground it. You have to ground it, requires grounding to stay. Now, induction is actually how you're able to get a balloon to stick on the wall. When you rub the balloon on your head, you go shh, 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 shh. Now you have this static balloon here, and you stick it on the wall. The electrons in the wall are actually moving because they want to either go toward or away from those other negative charges, toward the positive or away from the negative charges. So they do that, and then it sticks because you just scared it away. Remember in John, oh, that wasn't in John Travolta. There's another one I'll show you. That lets you see where those charges are. So again, this was conduction and induction. If you have any questions, make sure you let me know. Thanks for watching.